Don't let go of the babu tree!
Amina woke before dawn, as she always did. The pain in her left leg announced itself immediately, that familiar ache that had been her companion since birth. She sat up slowly on her thin mat, massaging the twisted limb that had earned her the cruelest nickname in Garin Dut's village, Gurgua, the cripple. At 17, Amina had learned to move through life quietly. In a farming village along the river Niger, where strength meant survival, where young women were valued for their ability to work fields and carry water, she was considered worthless. She lived in a small mud house at the edge of the village with her grandmother, Hajia Halima, the only person who'd ever treated her with kindness. Her parents had died when she was 3, during a fever outbreak that had taken many in the village. Hajia Halima had raised her alone, defending her granddaughter against the cruelty of neighbors who whispered that the girl's twisted leg was a curse. "Amina, you're awake," Hajia Halima's gentle voice came from the other room. At 72, her grandmother was frail but strong in spirit. "Yes, grandmother. Let me help you with morning prayers." Amina stood. Leaning on the walking stick, she carved herself from strong wood. She limped to the small kitchen area, where water sat in clay pots. Even this simple task, fetching water from the village well, took her 3 times as long as other girls. She had to rest every few steps, endure the mockery of children who imitated her limp, suffer the impatient sighs of women waiting behind her. After prayers and a simple breakfast of leftover tuo and groundnut soup, Hajia Halima looked at her granddaughter with concern. "You're going to market today?" "Yes, grandmother. I need to sell your embroidery. And we need salt and oil. Be careful, child. It's market day. The village will be crowded. People will be—" She didn't finish, but Amina understood. People would be cruel. "I'll be fine, grandmother. I always am." But that was a lie. She was never fine. Every market day was an exercise in humiliation. The morning sun was already fierce when Amina made her way toward the village square. Her grandmother's beautifully embroidered cloth folded carefully in a basket balanced on her head. Her limp made balancing difficult, and she had to stop every few minutes to adjust. Gurgua is coming." A boy's voice rang out. "Walk straight now, or your basket will fall." Laughter erupted from a group of young men, lounging under baobab tree. Amina kept her eyes down and continued walking. "Amina, wait!" She turned to see Hadiza running toward her, one of the few girls in the village who still showed her kindness. Hadiza was beautiful, strong, the daughter of the village chief. Everything Amina was not. "Let me help you," Hadiza said, adjusting the basket on Amina's head. "Thank you," Amina whispered. "Ignore them," Hadiza said, glaring at the boys. "They're fools." "Hadiza," one of the young men called out, Musa, the blacksmith's son, known for his strength. "Why do you waste time with a cripple? Come sit with us." "I'd rather waste time with her than idiots like you." Hadiza shot back. Amina felt a flush of gratitude, but also embarrassment. She hated being defended. It only highlighted her weakness. They walked together toward the market square, which was already bustling with activity. Farmers had brought yams, cassava, and millet. Women sold palm oil, groundnuts, and dried fish. The air smelled of roasting corn and fresh bread. Set up there, Hadiza pointed to a shaded spot. "I'll help you spread the cloth." They arranged Hajia Halima's embroidery, beautiful patterns in blue and gold thread. Women stopped to admire the work. "This is lovely. How much?" 8,000 Nigerian nairas, ma." Amina said, 8,000 Nigerian nairas? That's too much. 5,000 Nigerian nairas. The work took my grandmother 3 weeks, ma. The thread alone cost 5,000 Nigerian nairas, or I go elsewhere. Amina's heart sank, but she needed the money. 6,000 Nigerian nairas, final price, ma. The woman handed over the money and took the cloth. Amina counted it carefully. Nigerian naira 6,000. Enough for salt, oil, and a little left over. A successful market day. But as she was packing up, preparing to buy their supplies, a commotion erupted near the river. Accident at the bridge. A car has fallen into the river. People began running toward the riverbank. Hadiza grabbed Amina's arm. Come, let's see what happened. I can't run. I'll help you. Half dragged, half limping, Amina made her way with the crowd toward the river. By the time they arrived, at least 30 people had gathered on the bank. A black SUV had crashed to the wooden railing of the old bridge and plunged into the river. The current was strong. Always was during rainy season. The vehicle was sinking fast, water already covering the hood. Someone is inside. A man shouted. I can see him. Amina pushed through the crowd until she could see. Through the windshield, a man was visible, middle-aged, wearing expensive clothes, pounding on the window. The door wouldn't open. The electronic windows were dead. He was trapped. Help him. A woman screamed. Someone help him. But no one moved. The riverbank was lined with strong young men. Fishermen who spent their lives on the water, farmers with powerful arms, the village's wrestlers and hunters. All of them stood frozen. The current is too strong. Musa, the blacksmith's son, said, If I go in, I'll be swept away. But we have to do something. Hadiza cried. It's too dangerous. Another man said, Look how fast that car is sinking. By the time we get to him. It's not our fault, the village chief said, arriving and assessing the situation. We're not responsible for outsiders who drive carelessly on our bridge. Amina watched in horror as the man inside the car became more desperate. Water was filling the vehicle. He had minutes, maybe less. She looked around at the strong men doing nothing, at the women wailing but not acting, at the chief making excuses. Something inside her broke. Or maybe something inside her finally awakened. She remembered being 7 years old, mocked by children at the riverside. They'd pushed her in, laughing as she struggled in the shallow water, unable to swim properly with her weak leg. Everyone had watched. No one had helped until Hajia Halima arrived, furious, pulling her out. When people are cruel, her grandmother had told her that day, it's because they're afraid of their own weakness. But true strength, Amina, is not in the body. It's in the heart. Never forget that. Amina's eyes fell on a long bamboo pole leaning against a tree, the kind fishermen used to push boats away from shore. It was thick, strong, at least 15 feet long. Without thinking, without planning, she limped toward it. What is she doing? Someone muttered. She grabbed the bamboo pole. It was heavy. Her weak leg buckled slightly, but she steadied herself. Amina, no! Hadiza cried. You'll fall in. Someone has to do something. Amina said quietly, but you can't even. Hadiza stopped, seeing the determination in her friend's face. Amina dragged the pole toward the riverbank, her limp more pronounced under the weight. People moved aside, some laughing. The cripple thinks she can save him? This is madness. Someone stop her before she drowns too. But no one stopped her. She reached the edge where the water lapped at the mud. The SUV was 20 feet from shore, sinking deeper. The man inside was barely visible now, water up to his chest. Amina planted her good leg firmly in the mud. She extended the bamboo pole out over the water, as far as she could, using every ounce of strength in her arms. Grab it, she shouted. Sir, grab the pole. The man inside the car couldn't hear her through the closed windows and rushing water. She waved the pole frantically. Finally, he saw it. His eyes widened. He pushed against the door with all his might, and suddenly, perhaps because the water pressure had equalized, it burst open. Water rushed in, and he was swept out, tumbling in the current. The pole! Amina screamed. Grab the pole. He was being pulled downstream. The crowd gasped. It seemed hopeless, but the man was a fighter. He swam against the current with powerful strokes, angling toward the bamboo pole. His fingers brushed it once, twice, and then he grabbed it. Hold on! Amina shouted. The weight nearly yanked her into the river. Her weak leg gave out, and she felt her knees in the mud, but she didn't let go. She wrapped the pole around her arms, leaning back with every bit of strength she had. Help her! Hadiza screamed at the crowd. Don't just stand there. Shame finally moved two of the young men forward. They grabbed the pole behind Amina, adding their strength to hers. Inch by inch they pulled. The man held on, kicking his legs, helping as much as he could. Finally, he reached the shallows. Three men rushed forward, now that it was safe, and dragged him onto the bank. Amina collapsed onto her side in the mud, the bamboo pole slipping from her exhausted hands. Her arms felt like they were on fire. Her bad leg throbbed with pain worse than she'd ever felt. Black spots danced in her vision. The last thing she heard before unconsciousness took her was the man coughing up water and a voice asking, "Who saved me? Who pulled me out?" And a child's voice answering, "The crippled girl did it, sir. Everybody else was too afraid." When Amina woke, she was lying on a mat in the village chief's compound. This alone was shocking. She'd never been inside the chief's home. Girls like her weren't welcome in important places. "She's awake?" a woman's voice said. Hajia Halima's wrinkled face appeared above her. "Amina, my brave girl, you scared me to death." "Grandmother, what happened?" "What happened? You saved a man's life while the entire village stood around like cowards. Is he alive?" "Very much alive, and very interested in meeting you." Amina tried to sit up, but her arms screamed in protest. Her leg felt like it was on fire. "Rest, child. You overtax yourself. But the man you saved, Amina, he's not just anyone." "What do you mean?" Before Hajia Halima could answer, the door opened. The village chief entered, wearing his finest ibada and cap. Behind him came the man from the river. He was in his 50s, with gray at his temples and kind eyes. He wore clothes that even Amina, who knew nothing of fashion, could tell were expensive. He'd been cleaned up, but his eyes still held the shock of a man who'd faced death. And behind him stood four large men in dark suits, security, clearly looking uncomfortable in the humble village setting. "This is her?" the man asked softly. "This is the girl who saved me?" "Yes, Al-Haji Musa," the chief said obsequiously. "This is Amina. She's simple village girl. Lives with her grandmother. A bit unfortunate, as you can see." He gestured vaguely at her leg. "Unfortunate." The man's voice turned cold. "Chief, I was drowning. Your strong young men, all of them, stood on that bank and watched me die. This unfortunate girl grabbed a bamboo pole and pulled me to shore with her own hands. The only unfortunate thing here is that it took a disabled girl to show your village what courage looks like." The chief's face flushed with shame. The man, Al-Haji Musa, apparently, knelt beside Amina's mat. Up close, she could see the kindness in his eyes, but also the shrewdness of someone who'd fought hard in life. "Young lady, what is your name?" "Amina, sir. Amina Ibrahim." "Amina, do you know who I am?" She shook her head. "My name is Al-Haji Musa Abdullahi. I own Abdullahi Industries. Construction, manufacturing, import-export. I'm what they call a billionaire." He said it without pride, just as a fact. "I was traveling from Abuja to inspect a factory site in Minna. My driver swerved to avoid a goat, and we crashed through that bridge. My driver managed to escape through his window and swim to shore. I was trapped." He paused, emotion crossing his face. "I thought I was going to die. I prayed. I made peace with my end. And then I saw a bamboo pole appear through the water, held by a girl they called Gurgua, a girl they mocked." His jaw tightened. A girl who has more courage in her small finger than 30 strong men had in their entire bodies. Amina didn't know what to say. She'd never been praised like this, never been looked at with respect. "Sir, I couldn't watch someone die. That's all. That's all." He laughed, but it was a sad laugh. "Do you know how rare that is? To act when others won't? To risk yourself for a stranger?" He looked at Hajia Halima. "You raised her well, grandmother." "Her parents did, before they passed," Hajia Halima said. I just tried to protect her from cruelty." Al-Haji Musa's expression hardened. "I've heard about that cruelty." My men asked around about how she's treated, what they call her, how even children mock her. He turned to the chief. That ends today. Why, yes, Al-Haji, the chief stammered. Amina, Al-Haji Musa said, turning back to her. In my culture, a life dead is sacred. You saved my life. I owe you everything. So I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before answering. What do you want? What do you dream of? If you could change one thing about your life, what would it be? Amina's mind raced. What does she want? To walk properly? To not be mocked? To not be poor? But what came out of her mouth surprised even her. I want to be useful. Sir, I want to do something that matters. I want people to see me as more than this. She gestured at her leg. Al-Haji Musa smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his face. Then we understand each other, because I don't see a disabled girl when I look at you. I see the bravest person in this entire village. He stood. I'm going to change your life, Amina Ibrahim, not because of pity, but because the world needs more people like you and fewer people like them. He gestured toward the window, toward the village that had watched her struggle all her life. Tomorrow, my doctors will arrive, the best orthopedic specialists in Nigeria. They'll examine your leg. If it can be improved with surgery, we'll do it. If not, we'll ensure you have the best mobility aids available. Amina's eyes filled with tears. Sir, I can't afford. I'm not asking you to afford anything. I'm repaying a debt. He continued, after your recovery, you'll have a choice. University education, anywhere you want to study, or business training in any field that interests you, or both. Your grandmother will want for nothing for the rest of her life. I'm building you both a proper house, here in the village if you want it, or in town if you prefer. And when you're ready, there will be a position in my company, not charity, a real position where your courage and judgment will be valued. I don't understand. Why would you do all this? Because you saved my life when no one else would. Because courage deserves to be rewarded. Because... He paused and his voice grew soft. Because 30 years ago, I was a poor boy in a village like this. People said I'd never amount to anything. One person believed in me. One teacher who paid my school fees when my parents couldn't. That kindness changed my life. I've been looking for a way to pay it forward ever since. And today, standing on that riverbank, drowning, I made a promise to God. If I survive this, I'll find whoever saves me and change their life the way mine was changed. He looked at her intently. You are that person, Amina. So the question isn't why I do this. The question is, are you brave enough to accept it? Are you brave enough to let your life change? Amina looked at her grandmother, whose tears were flowing freely, looked at the village chief, whose face showed envy and shame, looked at her own twisted leg, which had been a curse, but had somehow led to this moment. She thought about the bamboo pole, about acting when others wouldn't, about being brave when it mattered most. Yes, she whispered. Yes, sir, I'm brave enough. And for the first time in her 17 years, Amina Ibrahim smiled with real hope for the future. They called her the weakest in the village. They mocked her. They dismissed her. But when that car plunged into the river and that man was drowning, she grabbed a bamboo pole and proved that true strength has nothing to do with perfect legs. And now the man she saved is one of Nigeria's richest billionaires. And he just promised to change her entire life. What happens when a billionaire owes you a life debt? 3 days after the rescue, Garin Dutt's village was transformed, not by development or prosperity, but by something far more toxic, envy. Al-Haji Musa had kept his word. The morning after the rescue, 3 vehicles arrived in the village, expensive SUVs that stirred up dust and drew every resident from their homes. Out stepped 2 doctors from Abuja, carrying medical equipment, and 4 construction workers carrying materials for house repairs. Where's the girl called Amina? The lead doctor asked. The village chief, who'd rushed to greet the convoy, pointed to Hajia Halima's humble compound at the village edge. The entire village followed as the procession made its way there like spectators at a parade. Amina was outside, grinding grain for lunch, when she saw them coming. Her heart raced. Amina Ibrahim? The doctor asked. He was young, wearing glasses and a kind smile. I'm Dr. Adamu. Al-Haji Musa sent us to examine your leg. May we? For the next 2 hours, the doctors examined her in her grandmother's house, while curious villagers pressed against the windows trying to see. They took x-rays with portable equipment, tested her range of motion, asked countless questions about her medical history. Finally, Dr. Adamu emerged with good news. The deformity is not as severe as it appears, he explained to Amina and Hajia Halima. It's a combination of an untreated childhood fracture and muscle atrophy. With surgery to realign the bone and extensive physical therapy, you could walk with minimal difficulty, maybe even normally. Amina's hands flew to her mouth. Normally? You mean you'll never be a sprinter? Dr. Adamu smiled. But you could walk without pain, without a limp. You're young. Your body can still heal. When? Hajia Halima asked, tears streaming down her face. We need to take her to our facility in Abuja. The surgery is complex. Recovery would take 6 months, maybe longer with therapy. But Al-Haji Musa has already arranged everything. Transportation, surgery, accommodation, everything. While this was happening, the construction crew was already at work. Al-Haji Musa had left specific instructions. Repair Hajia Halima's house. New roof, plaster walls, proper windows, a real kitchen with running water pipe from the new borehole they drill, cement floors to replace the packed earth. The transformation was rapid. By that evening, what had been the village's most humble dwelling was becoming one of its nicest. And that's when the jealousy truly began. This is not fair. The complaint came from Malama Rabi, one of the village's most influential women. She stood outside the chief's compound with a dozen other women, their faces twisted with resentment. Amina did nothing special. Rabi continued. She just held a pole. My sons had done the same thing. But they didn't, Hadiza pointed out. She'd been defending her friend all day and was exhausted from it. They stood and watched. Because the situation was dangerous, they were being smart, not reckless like that girl. Reckless? Hadiza's eyes flashed. She saved a man's life, and now she gets everything? A new house? Surgery? University education? While our children who work hard every day get nothing. The chief, sensing potential trouble, tried to calm them. The Al-Haji is generous. Maybe if we approach him, he'll help the whole village. He should help the whole village. Another woman interrupted. We're not responsible for outsiders crashing their cars in our river. Why should one girl benefit while we suffer? What they didn't say, but everyone heard, was the real complaint. Why her? Why does a crippled girl, the one we've mocked and dismissed, suddenly get blessed while we get nothing? Inside her newly repaired house, Amina couldn't hear these complaints, but she could feel the change in atmosphere. When she'd gone to fetch water that afternoon, women who'd ignored her for years suddenly wanted to talk. Amina, my dear, you know, I always said you were a good girl. I told everyone you had a kind heart. My son Usman, remember him? He always liked you. The hypocrisy was suffocating. Amina kept her responses polite, but brief. She wasn't a fool. These same women had called her cursed. Their sons had mocked her limp. Now they circled like vultures, hoping scraps of her good fortune might fall their way. Only Hadiza remained genuine. Don't trust them, Hadiza warned as they walked together to the market. They're only kind because you're valuable now. Yesterday you were nothing to them. I know, Amina said softly, but I can't be angry. That would make me like them. You're too forgiving. Maybe, but grandmother says bitterness is poison. I won't drink it. At the market, the change was even more dramatic. Traders who'd shortchanged her before now offered her the best prices. The butcher gave her extra meat. The fabric seller showed her the finest cloth. For you, Amina, special price. But in their eyes, she saw a calculation, not kindness. Even worse were the young men. Musa, the blacksmith's son who called her Gurdua 3 days ago, now tried to walk beside her. Amina, you look well today. That leg is not so bad. Really, I never understood why people made fun of it. She stopped and looked at him. You made fun of it. 2 days ago, you called me the cripple and said I'd never find a husband. His face flushed. I was joking. You know I didn't mean... Yes, you did. And I don't blame you. But don't pretend now. It's insulting. She walked away, leaving him standing there. But if she thought that would discourage the attention, she was wrong. By evening, 3 mothers had approached Hajia Halima with marriage proposals for their sons. My Usman is hard-working, respectful. My Aliyu has land. He'll provide well. My Ibrahim is the strongest young man in the village. Hajia Halima cut them off. Where were these proposals a week ago? A month ago? When Amina was just a poor, crippled girl who'd never find a husband. The women sputtered excuses, but they knew they were caught. My granddaughter is not for sale, Hajia Halima said firmly. And she's not so desperate that she'll marry the first fool whose mother sees opportunity. Now leave my house. That night, as Amina lay on her mat listening to construction crew finish repairs on the roof, she felt deeply unsettled. Grandmother? Yes, child. Why are people like this? The same people who were cruel 3 days ago now pretend to be friends. Don't they feel shame? Hajia Halima was quiet for a long moment. People fear what they don't understand. You were weak, poor, disabled, easy to dismiss. Now you're connected to power and wealth. They fear being left behind. Fear makes people cruel, Amina, but it also makes them cowards. The Al-Haji said he would help me, but I didn't help him to get something in return. I couldn't let him die. I know that. He knows that. That's why he respects you. But these villagers, she sighed, they can't imagine doing something without expecting reward. So they assume you planned it somehow, that you're clever, not good. That's not fair. No, it's not, but life rarely is. Hajia Halima reached out and squeezed Amina's hand. The question is, what kind of person will you be now that you have opportunity? Will you be like them, using your new position for revenge? Or will you be better? Amina thought about this, about the years of mockery and pain, about how easy it would be to turn cruel now that she had powerful protection. I want to be better, she said finally. I don't want to be like them. Good, because the Al-Haji didn't choose you for revenge. He chose you because you acted when it was right, not profitable. Don't lose that. But being good was about to get much harder. The trouble started on the 4th day. Amina woke feeling ill, stomach cramps, nausea, dizziness. She assumed she'd eaten something bad and tried to rest. By midday, she was worse. Vomiting, fever. Hajia Halima was terrified. This isn't normal food sickness, her grandmother said. Something is wrong. Dr. Adamu, who was staying in the village to monitor Amina's condition before surgery, was called immediately. He examined her, his face growing concerned. This might be poisoning. Not serious enough to kill, but enough to make her very sick. He looked at Hajia Halima. Has she eaten anything unusual? Anything from someone outside your household? Hajia Halima's face went pale. Yesterday, the chief's wife sent over stew. Said it was a gift to celebrate Amina's good fortune. Dr. Adamu's expression darkened. Don't eat anything from others. Only food you prepare yourself. I'll give her medicine to flush her system, but... He looked directly at Amina. Someone tried to hurt you. You need to be careful. The reality sank in like ice water. Someone in her own village, someone she lived alongside her entire life, had deliberately poisoned her. When Al-Haji Musa heard the news, his response was swift and cold. He arrived in the village that evening with 10 security personnel. The entire village was summoned to the square. Al-Haji Musa stood before them, his kind face now hard as stone. Yesterday, someone in this village tried to poison Amina Ibrahim, a girl who did nothing wrong except save my life. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The chief's face went red. I will find out who did this, Al-Haji Musa continued. And when I do, they will face consequences. But more importantly, I want everyone here to understand something. He gestured to Amina, who stood beside him, still pale and weak. This girl is under my protection now. She is like a daughter to me. Anyone who harms her, physically, emotionally, in any way will answer to me. And trust me, you don't want that. He let the threat hang in the air. I came to this village by accident. I nearly died here. This girl saved me. In return, I'm helping her build a better life. Not because she asked, not because she manipulated, because it's right. If you have a problem with that, take it up with me, not her. He paused, scanning the crowd. I'm also announcing that in 2 weeks, there will be a public ceremony. The governor will attend. Media will be here. We'll honor Amina properly for her courage. And after that ceremony, she'll be leaving for Abuja for her surgery and education. She won't have to live among people who poison her for daring to rise above the station you assigned her. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Shame mixed with anger on many faces. One more thing. Alhaji Musa said, I've decided to invest in this village, not because you deserve it, but because Amina asked me to. She said even though you've been cruel to her, you're still her neighbors and they need help. So I'm building a new school, renovating the health clinic, and installing clean water systems. Gasps of surprise and delight. But Alhaji Musa's voice cut through the excitement. If anything else happens to Amina or her grandmother, I'll cancel every project. The money meant for this village will go elsewhere. You'll get nothing. The choice is yours. Treat her with respect and benefit, or continue your cruelty and lose everything. He let that sink in, then turned to Amina. Come, you shouldn't be standing this long. As they walked away, Amina heard the explosion of conversation behind them, arguments, accusations, defenses. She'd never felt so isolated from her own community. I'm sorry, she said quietly to Alhaji Musa. You didn't have to threaten them. Yes, I did. Amina, you're kind. It's your greatest strength. But kindness without boundaries is weakness. These people need to understand there are consequences for cruelty. But now they'll resent me even more. Let them. In 2 weeks, you'll leave this place. You'll go to Abuja, have your surgery, attend university, build a real life. This village and its small-minded people will become a memory. Amina looked back at the crowd, at Hadiza, who was arguing with her father, at the children who used to mock her, at the women who'd poisoned her. Will I ever come back? Alhaji Musa smiled sadly. That's up to you. But I'll tell you this. In my experience, the places that reject us become much friendlier once we no longer need them. When you return successful, educated, confident, they'll claim they always believed in you. That seems dishonest. It is, but that's how the world works. People respect power more than kindness. It's unfortunate, but true. They reached Hajia Halima's house, now almost completely renovated, looking more like a small mansion than a mud hut. Rest, Alhaji Musa said. Recover. The ceremony is in 2 weeks. After that, your new life begins. No more cruelty. No more mockery. No more being called Gergua. From now on, you'll be Amina Ibrahim, the girl who had more courage than an entire village of so-called strong men. As he left, Amina sat with her grandmother in their newly beautiful home, feeling the weight of change pressing down on her. Are you afraid? Hajia Halima asked. Terrified, Amina admitted. Everything is happening so fast. A week ago, I was nobody. Now you're somebody who matters. It's natural to be afraid. But remember why this happened. Not because you wanted fame or wealth, but because you did what was right when others wouldn't. Hold on to that. Let that guide you. What if I fail? What if I get to Abuja and can't keep up? What if... Stop. Hajia, Halima took her granddaughter's face in her wrinkled hands. You grabbed a bamboo pole and pulled a drowning man from a river with your weak leg and trembling arms. You've already proven you can do impossible things. Education? Surgery? Those are easy compared to what you've already survived. Amina nodded, trying to believe it. Outside, night fell over Garin Dut's village. Tomorrow would bring more jealousy, more false kindness, more complications. But in 2 weeks, Amina would leave this place. And when she returned, if she returned, she would be someone entirely different. Someone who could stand straight. Someone educated and accomplished. Someone who proved that being called weak was never about the body. It was always about the courage of the heart. The 2 weeks passed like a dream wrapped in a nightmare. Amina recovered from the poisoning, though Dr. Adamu kept close watch over everything she ate. Hajia Halima prepared all their food personally, accepting no gifts from neighbors despite the sudden flood of offerings, fresh meat, vegetables, bread, all arriving with apologetic notes. "They're afraid," Hajia Halima said, dumping another basket of food outside for the goats. "Not sorry, just afraid of losing the Al-Haji's investment." The village transformation had already begun. Construction crews arrived to build the new school, a proper 3-classroom building with real desks and chairs, not the single mud-walled room with no roof that had served as their school before. The health clinic was being renovated and expanded, with a real nurse scheduled to arrive after completion. Most impressively, workers were drilling for clean water wells at 3 locations around the village. Every improvement reminded the villagers of what they could have lost if anything else happened to Amina. The ceremony was set for Saturday. Al-Haji Musa had insisted on making it a major event, not just to honor Amina, but to send a message that couldn't be ignored. 3 days before the ceremony, a van arrived carrying a dozen beautifully wrapped packages. "Clothes," the driver explained. Al-Haji Musa said the young lady needs proper attire for the ceremony. Amina and Hajia Halima unpacked them together, gasping at each item. There were traditional outfits in rich fabrics, elegant wrappers, and blouses with intricate embroidery, modern dresses, shoes that actually fit properly, a beautiful hijab in deep blue with gold threading. "I've never owned anything so fine," Amina whispered, running her fingers over the fabric. "I don't even know how to wear such things." "You'll learn," Hajia Halima said. "You'll learn many things, child. This is just the beginning." Also in the packages was clothing for Hajia Halima, beautiful traditional attire suitable for an elder of respect. Nothing like the threadbare wrapper she'd worn for decades. "He didn't forget you, grandmother." Hajia Halima's eyes filled with tears. "That man understands something most wealthy people don't. That honoring you means honoring those who raised you. He's a good man. Amina, whatever he asks of you, be worthy of his trust." The morning of the ceremony, Garin Dutt's village woke to unusual activity. Vehicles arrived before dawn, expensive cars carrying important people. Security teams secured the main square. A canopy was erected with rows of chairs. A stage platform was built for speeches. Media crews arrived with cameras and equipment. By 9 a.m., the village square was unrecognizable. What was normally a dusty gathering place for market days now looked like a proper event venue. Banners hung declaring, "Honoring true courage, Amina Ibrahim." The villagers gathered early, dressed in their finest clothes, tried to look like they'd always supported Amina. The hypocrisy was thick enough to cut with a knife. Hadiza arrived at Amina's house to help her get ready. Unlike the others, Hadiza's support had never wavered. "You look nervous," Hadiza said as she helped Amina into the beautiful blue dress and matching hijab. "I've never been in front of so many people. Important people. What if I say something wrong? You saved a man's life with a bamboo pole while everyone else watched. I think you can handle a ceremony." Hadiza stepped back to admire her work. "Amina, you look beautiful. Really beautiful. Not that you weren't before, but I know what you mean." Amina looked at herself in the new mirror that had been installed during the house renovation. She barely recognized the confident-looking young woman staring back at her. "I feel like I'm pretending to be someone else." "You're not pretending. You're becoming. There's a difference." Dr. Adama knocked and entered. "Are you ready? The guests are arriving." The governor's convoy just pulled up. Amina's eyes went wide. The actual governor? The actual governor, along with 2 senators, several business leaders, and about 30 journalists. Al-Haji Musa doesn't do anything small. They walked together to the square, Amina leaning lightly on her walking stick. Even with all the preparation, she was unprepared for the sight that greeted her. Hundreds of people filled the square. The front rows were occupied by dignitaries in expensive clothes. Behind them sat the villagers, looking overwhelmed and out of place at an event in their own village. Media cameras were everywhere. A large banner showed her own face, a professional photo someone had taken the day before without her realizing it was for this. Amina! Al-Haji Musa peered, smiling warmly. He looked distinguished in a pristine white agbada with gold embroidery. You look wonderful. Come, let me introduce you to some people. The next hour was a blur of handshakes and names she immediately forgot. The governor, an imposing man with kind eyes. 2 senators. The commissioner of health. Business leaders. Journalists who asked questions she barely understood. How did you feel when you grabbed the bamboo pole? What message do you have for other disabled youth? Do you feel you're a role model for women? She answered as honestly as she could, but the attention was overwhelming. Finally, at 11 a.m., the ceremony formally began. The village chief gave the opening speech, a long, self-congratulatory address about our village values and the communal spirit that we instilled in our young people. He went on so long that Al-Haji Musa finally cut him off. Thank you, Chief. I think we should hear from people who were actually there. Several villagers were called to testify about what happened that day. Their accounts were creative. I was about to jump in when the girl beat me to it, Musa the blacksmith's son claimed. We all encouraged her, told her we'd help, another young man said. The whole village worked together to pull the Al-Haji to safety, someone else added. Amina watched this revisionist history with amazement. These were the same men who'd stood frozen, who'd made excuses, who'd laughed at her. But then a small voice spoke up. That's not what happened. Everyone turned. It was a little boy named Yusuf, maybe 8 years old, with a serious face. I was there, Yusuf said loudly. All the big men were too scared. They said the current was too strong. They said it wasn't their fault. Nobody helped. Only Amina. She pulled him out by herself until the men finally helped at the end when it was safe. Silence fell over the square. The men who just lied looked ashamed. The governor's expression hardened. Thank you, young man, for your honesty, the governor said. Then turned to the crowd. Let this be a lesson. True courage is rare. False claims of courage are common. We honor the former and despise the latter. More speeches followed. The commissioner of health talked about disability and courage. A business leader spoke about Al-Haji Musa's generosity. A senator discussed the importance of helping youth reach their potential. Then it was Al-Haji Musa's turn. He stood at the podium, commanding immediate attention. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the square. 2 weeks ago, I was dying. My car had crashed into a river. Water was filling the vehicle. I couldn't open the door. I couldn't break the window. I was trapped, drowning, praying for mercy. On the riverbank stood at least 20 men. Strong men. Fishermen who knew the water. Farmers with powerful arms. Young men in their prime. And they did nothing. They made excuses. The current was too strong. It was too dangerous. It wasn't their responsibility. And then a girl appeared. A girl they called Gergua, the cripple. A girl with a twisted leg who couldn't walk properly. A girl who'd been mocked and dismissed her entire life. This girl grabbed a bamboo pole. She dragged it to the riverbank. And despite her weak leg, despite having no help, despite every reason to be afraid, she extended that pole to a drowning stranger and pulled him to safety with her own hands. He paused, letting his words sink in. I learned something that day. Physical strength means nothing without the courage to use it. A village full of strong men proved useless, while one weak girl proved invaluable. Since then, I've learned more about Amina Ibrahim, about how she's been treated, the mockery, the cruelty, how even children called her names, how she was considered worthless because of a leg that didn't work properly. And I've wondered, what kind of society decides a person's worth based on their body rather than their character? What kind of village calls their bravest member worthless? The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Several people stared at their feet. Today, we correct that injustice. Today, we honor real courage. And today, I announce my commitment to Amina Ibrahim's future. He gestured, and an assistant brought forward a leather folder. Amina, please come forward. Heart pounding, Amina limped to the stage. The crowd watched every step. some with admiration, some with envy, some with shame. Alhaji Musa opened the folder. First, a full scholarship to any university in Nigeria. All expenses paid for 4 years. Any course of study she chooses. Applause erupted. Amina's eyes filled with tears. Second, complete medical treatment at the National Orthopedic Hospital in Abuja. Surgery, physical therapy, whatever is needed to improve her mobility. All expenses covered. More applause. Hajia Halima was crying openly. Third, a trust fund of 5 million naira, managed until she turns 21, to ensure she never faces financial hardship again. Gasps rippled through the crowd. 5 million naira was generational wealth in a village like Garin Duts. Fourth, a permanent position in Abdullahi Industries upon graduation. Not charity, a real position where her judgment and courage will be valued. The applause was deafening now. And finally, Alhaji Musa said, pulling out one more document, this house, the renovated home where Amina and her grandmother live, is now legally theirs, deed transferred, fully owned. No one can ever take it from them. Amina couldn't hold back anymore. She broke down crying, covering her face with her hands. Hajia Halima rushed to the stage, embracing her granddaughter. The governor stood and began clapping. Soon everyone was standing, applauding. Even those who'd poisoned her, mocked her, wished her ill, they clapped, because to do otherwise would mark them publicly. When the applause finally died down, Alhaji Musa had one more thing to say. I want to thank this village for one thing, for being so cruel to Amina that when my life was in danger, she had nothing to lose by saving me. Had you treated her well, had you given her status and security, she might have feared risking herself. But you gave her nothing. So she had no reason to stand aside like your strong men did. In a way, your cruelty ensured my survival. So thank you. But don't mistake this for approval. The fact that it took an outsider to recognize Amina's worth is your shame, not your pride. The message was clear. The village had failed. Alhaji Musa had succeeded. And Amina was leaving. Then it was Amina's turn to speak. She approached the microphone with shaking hands, her walking stick tapping against the stage. The crowd fell silent. I don't know what to say, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. Then, stronger, 2 weeks ago I was nobody, the weakest person in the village, the one everyone pitied or mocked. I thought that's all I'd ever be. When I saw Alhaji Musa drowning, I didn't think about rewards or recognition. I just thought, someone's dying and no one is helping. I can't lift heavy things. I can't run fast. But I can hold a pole. So I did. I'm grateful for everything Alhaji Musa has done for me. More grateful than I can express. But I want to say something to this village. She paused, looking out at the crowd. At the men who'd mocked her. The women who'd poisoned her. The children who'd imitated her limp. I forgive you, all of you, for the cruelty, the mockery, the poisoning. I forgive you because holding anger would make me like you, and I don't want to be like you. Shocked silence. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. I'll remember who stood by me. Grandmother, Hadiza, little Yusuf who told the truth, and I'll remember who didn't. When I leave for Abuja next week, I'll carry those memories. They'll remind me to be better than what I experience here. The Alhaji is building a school, a clinic, water wells. Not because you deserve them, but because I asked them to help. Because despite everything, you're still my neighbors. But don't mistake his generosity for approval of how you've treated me. She looked directly at the village chief. You'll tell people you always believed in me, that the village raised me right, that my success reflects your values. But we both know that's a lie. You only value me now because someone powerful does. Before that, I was just a cripple, the Gurgua, the worthless girl. The chief's face burned red with shame. I hope the school teaches future children to see worth in everyone, not just the strong and able-bodied. I hope the clinic treats everyone with dignity, not just those who can afford it. I hope the water is shared equally, not hoarded by those with status. Because if this village learns anything from my story, it should be this. You never know who will save you when you need it most. It might not be the strong men or the important families. It might be the person you dismissed, the one you mocked, the one you called worthless. Remember that, and be kinder. She stepped back from the microphone to thunderous applause, but this time it felt different. Not just celebration, but recognition, respect, even from those who'd hated her. The ceremony continued with closing remarks from the governor, who announced additional government support for the village's development. Photos were taken. Certificates were presented. Media interviewed Amina from every angle. But the moment that mattered most came afterward, as the crowd was dispersing. A woman approached Malama Rabi, the same one who led the complaints against Amina, the same one Dr. Adamu suspected had sent the poisoned food. She stood before Amina with her eyes downcast. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for everything, for what I said, for what I did. You didn't deserve any of it." Amina looked at this woman who'd tried to hurt her, this woman who was only apologizing because she'd been exposed, because everyone was watching, and she made a choice. "I forgive you," Amina said simply, "but I don't trust you." Forgiveness and trust are different things. One is a gift, the other must be earned. Malama Rabi nodded, tears streaming down her face, and walked away. As the sun set over Garin Dutt's village that evening, Amina sat with Hajiya Halima and Hadiza in their beautiful new house, surrounded by gifts and certificates and promises of a transformed future. "You were magnificent," Hadiza said. "That speech, everyone's talking about it." "They'll forget soon enough," Amina said. "Once I'm gone, they'll go back to their normal lives." "Maybe," Hajiya Halima said, "but maybe not. You've shown them what courage looks like. Some won't forget that. Some will try to be better. And the ones who won't, those aren't your responsibility. You can't fix everyone. Amina, you can only be yourself and hope others learn from your example." Amina looked around the room, at the plastered walls, the proper windows, the cement floor. Everything was different now. In 1 week, she'd leave for Abuja, leave everything familiar behind. "I'm scared, grandmother." "Of what?" "Of failing, of not being good enough, of letting everyone down." Hajiya Halima took her granddaughter's hand. "You grabbed a bamboo pole and saved a drowning man while everyone else just watched. If you can do that, you can do anything. The surgery will be difficult. University will be challenging. But you've already proven you can face impossible odds and win. What if my leg doesn't heal properly? What if even after surgery I still limp?" "Then you'll limp. But you'll limp as Dr. Amina Ibrahim, or Amina Ibrahim the engineer, or Amina Ibrahim the business leader. Your leg doesn't define you. It never did. That was just a convenient excuse for small-minded people to dismiss you." Hadiza squeezed her other hand. "And you won't be alone. I'll write to you every week. I'll come visit when I can. You'll make new friends. Real friends who see you for who you are." As night fell completely over the village, Amina felt something shift inside her. The fear was still there, but something else was growing alongside it. Excitement, possibility, hope. For 17 years, she'd been defined by what she couldn't do, by her weak leg, by her poverty, by her low status. But in 2 weeks, drowning in that river, a man had seen past all that. He'd seen courage, value, worth, and now, because of one brave moment with a bamboo pole, everything was changing. The girl who'd been called the weakest was about to become strong, and the village that had dismissed her would watch from a distance as she rose. Abuja was overwhelming. Amina had never seen a city before, never seen buildings taller than 2 stories, never seen paved roads that stretched for miles, never experienced traffic lights or shopping malls or the sheer mass of humanity that filled Nigeria's capital. The drive from Garin Dutt's had taken 6 hours in Alhaji Musa's comfortable SUV, with Hajiya Halima beside her and Dr. Adamu explaining what to expect. But no explanation could have prepared her for the reality. "That's the National Mosque." Dr. Adamu pointed out landmarks as they drove through the city. "That's the National Assembly. That's Millennium Park." Amina pressed her face to the window like a child, drinking in everything. The cars, The lights, the people in modern clothes hurrying past, the advertisements on billboards, the restaurants with names in English. "It's so big," she whispered. "You'll get used to it," Hajia Halima assured her, though her grandmother looked equally overwhelmed. They arrived at a beautiful gated compound in Maitama, one of Abuja's most prestigious neighborhoods. The security guard waved them through immediately. "This is Alhaji Musa's guest house," Dr. Adamu explained. "You'll stay here during your treatment and preparation for university. It has 3 bedrooms, full kitchen, living area. Staff will help with anything you need." The house was bigger than 10 houses in Garin Dutz combined. Marble floors, air conditioning, modern furniture, a television bigger than Amina had ever imagined, Western toilets instead of pit latrines, hot and cold running water. "I can't live here," Amina said, backing toward the door. "This is too much. I'll break something. I don't know how anything works." "You'll learn," a new voice said. A woman emerged from the kitchen, perhaps 40 years old, with kind eyes and a professional manner. She wore a moderate hijab and a smart dress. "I'm Malama Zainab. I manage this household. Alhaji Musa asked me to help you adjust to city life. There's nothing to be afraid of. Everything here is for you to use and enjoy." Over the next week, Malama Zainab became Amina's guide to modern life. "This is the remote control for the television. These buttons change channels. This is the washing machine. You put clothes in here, add detergent. This is the microwave. It heats food quickly." Each new technology felt like magic. Amina was particularly amazed by the shower. Hot water coming from the wall. No need to heat water over a fire. "You're doing very well," Malama Zainab said after that first week. "Most village girls take much longer to adapt." "I don't feel like I'm adapting," Amina admitted. "I feel like I'm pretending." "That's normal, but pretending is how we learn. Soon it won't be pretending anymore. It'll just be living." The surgery was scheduled for 2 weeks after their arrival, giving Amina time to undergo preliminary tests and consultations. The National Orthopedic Hospital was intimidating, a massive complex filled with doctors, nurses, and patients. But the staff treated Amina with warmth and respect, never with the pity she'd experienced in the village. Dr. Okonkwo, the lead orthopedic surgeon, reviewed her x-rays with a smile. "Good news. The deformity is correctable. The bone didn't set properly after the childhood fracture, and the muscles have compensated poorly, but we can fix both. The surgery will take 4 hours. Recovery will be 6 months of intensive physical therapy. But at the end, you should walk with minimal difficulty." "Will I always have some limp?" Amina asked. "Probably a slight one, yes. But nothing like what you have now. You'll be able to walk without pain, without a cane, without people noticing unless they look carefully." Amina tried to imagine it, walking normally, moving through crowds without people staring. No more mockery. No more being called Gergua. "When can we do it?" "Next Monday." "But Amina, you need to understand this surgery is intense. The recovery will be painful. You'll need to work hard in physical therapy. Are you ready for that?" She thought about the bamboo pole, about pulling a drowning man from the river despite her weak leg, about standing on a stage and forgiving people who'd poison her. "I'm ready." The morning of the surgery, Amina woke before dawn with butterflies in her stomach. Hajia Halima helped to prepare, both of them quiet with anxiety. "I'm frightened, grandmother." "So am I. But I'm also proud. You're so brave. Amina, braver than I've ever been." Alhaji Musa arrived at the hospital to see her before surgery. He'd visited several times over the past 2 weeks, checking on their adjustment to city life, ensuring they had everything they needed. "Nervous?" he asked. "Terrified." He smiled. "Good. If you weren't scared, I'd worry. Fear means you understand what's at stake. But fear doesn't have to stop you. You've already proven that. What if something goes wrong? Dr. Okonkwo is the best. I've hired the best team, the best facility. But even if something goes wrong, even if the surgery doesn't work perfectly, you're still the girl who saved my life. Your leg doesn't define you. It never did." Everyone else thinks it does. Then everyone else is wrong. He squeezed her hand. I'll be here when you wake up. So will your grandmother. You're not alone anymore. Amina, you have family now. That word, family, brought tears to her eyes. The surgery itself was a blur of white lights, masked faces, and then nothing. Amina woke in stages. First, pain, sharp and throbbing in her leg. Then voices. Hajia Halima's worried tone. Dr. Alconkwo's calm instructions. Then awareness. She was alive. The surgery was over. Amina? Dr. Alconkwo's face appeared above her. Can you hear me? She nodded weakly. The surgery was successful. Everything went exactly as planned. Your leg is now straight. The bone is realigned. The tendons are adjusted. Now comes the hard part, recovery. The next 6 months tested Amina in ways she'd never imagined. Physical therapy was agony. Every day, therapists pushed her to move the newly repaired leg, to rebuild muscles that had atrophied over 17 years, to learn to walk properly for the first time in her life. I can't, she gasped during one particularly brutal session. It hurts too much. You can. Her therapist, a stern woman named Mrs. Afalabi, insisted. 5 more steps. You've done harder things than this. Have I? You pulled a drowning man from a river with a bamboo pole. 5 more steps is nothing compared to that. So she took 5 more steps, then 5 more, then 5 more. Slowly, painfully, her leg began to work properly. By month 3, she could walk without crutches, though she still needed a cane. By month 4, the cane was just for support, not necessity. By month 5, she walked with only a slight limp, barely noticeable unless you knew to look for it. By month 6, she was walking normally. Actually normally. The first time she walked across a hospital therapy room, without limping at all, without pain, without her leg giving out, Amina broke down crying. I can walk, she sobbed. I can actually walk. Mrs. Afalabi, who never showed emotion, had tears in her eyes too. Yes, you can. You did it. Amina, 6 months of hell, and you did it. That evening, Hajia Halima watched her granddaughter walk around their house, pacing back and forth, unable to stop, marveling at the simple act of putting one foot in front of the other without pain or difficulty. My beautiful girl, Hajia Halima whispered, look at you. Just look at you. Alhaji Musa visited that weekend with special news. Your university admission is confirmed. University of Abuja. You'll start next semester studying business administration. I thought you might be interested in learning how companies work, how money flows, how to build things. But if you want to study something else, medicine, engineering, anything, we can change it. Business sounds perfect, Amina said. I want to understand how you built what you built, how someone with nothing becomes someone with everything. He smiled. It's not easy. There will be challenges. But I'll be here to guide you. Why are you doing all this? Amina asked suddenly. I know you said it's a life debt, but this is so much more than saving a life. You've changed everything for me. Why? Alhaji Musa was quiet for a long moment. 30 years ago, I was a street hawker in Lagos, he finally said, selling pure water, running between cars and traffic. I was 15 years old. My parents were dead. I was living in a slum with an uncle who beat me. One day I was robbed. 3 older boys took everything. My money, my water sachets, everything. I sat by the roadside crying because I knew my uncle would beat me for coming home with nothing. A woman stopped. She was middle-aged, well-dressed, clearly wealthy. She asked what happened. I told her, and instead of just giving me money to replace what I lost, she did something else. She said, I'll give you capital to start a real business, not hawking water, buying goods wholesale and selling retail. But you have to promise me something. When you succeed, you find someone struggling like you are now, and you help them. Pass it forward. Keep the chain going. He paused, emotion in his voice. That woman gave me 50,000 Nigerian nairas, a fortune in those days. She taught me basic business. She mentored me for 2 years. Everything I built started with her kindness. I tried to pay her back once I became successful, but I couldn't find her. She'd moved abroad. So I've been looking for the right person to pass it forward to. Someone who deserved it. Someone with courage and character, not just need. When I saw you grab that bamboo pole, when I learned about your life, about how you've been treated, about your quiet strength, I knew you were the one. The chain continues through you. Amina, one day, when you're successful, you'll find someone struggling and you'll help them. And they'll help someone else. And the chain will never break. Amina felt the weight of that responsibility settle on her shoulders. What if I fail? What if I can't live up to this? You won't fail, because you've already proven you do the right thing even when it's hard, even when you get nothing from it. That's the quality that matters. Everything else can be taught. University began the following month. Amina was terrified that first day, walking onto the sprawling University of Abuja campus with its modern buildings, thousands of students, and overwhelming energy. But she walked, really walked. No limp, no cane. No one looked at her with pity or mockery. For the first time in her life, she was just normal. You must be Amina. A cheerful girl with braided hair approached. I'm Blessing. We're in the same business administration orientation group. First day? Yes. I'm from a small village. This is all very new. Don't worry. I'll show you around. Where are you from? Garin Duts, near Minna. Never heard of it, but doesn't matter. We're all lost on the first day. Come on, I'll help you find your classroom. Blessing became her first real friend outside the village, someone who knew nothing about Gergua or bamboo poles or wealthy benefactors. Just a friendly classmate helping another. The courses were challenging. Amina had missed years of proper education, and while Malama Zainab had tutored her intensively for 6 months, she still struggled with concepts other students found basic. But she worked harder than anyone. Late night studying, extra tutoring sessions, using the library until it closed. Her professors noticed. Miss Ibrahim, Professor Okafor said after returning her first essay with a high grade, "This is excellent work. Where did you say you were from?" "Garin Dut, sir. A small village." "Well, you write better than most students from elite schools. Keep this up." By the end of her first semester, Amina was in the top 10% of her class. She also discovered something unexpected. She was good at business, understanding markets, supply chains, financial planning. It all made intuitive sense to her. Perhaps because she'd grown up poor, she understood value in ways wealthy students didn't. "You should consider specializing in social entrepreneurship," Professor Okafor suggested. "Businesses that solve social problems while making profit. You'd be excellent at it." "What kind of social problems?" "Rural development, helping villages access markets, improve infrastructure, build sustainable economies. With your background, you could bridge the gap between rural and urban economies." The idea planted itself in Amina's mind and began to grow. One year after the rescue, Alhaji Musa invited Amina to his main office, a towering glass building in Abuja's central business district. "I want to show you something," he said, leading her to a conference room where several executives waited. "Everyone, this is Amina Ibrahim, the young woman I've told you about. Amina, these are my senior managers. I want you to shadow them for the next few months. Learn how a real business operates. Not just theory, actual practice." For the next 6 months, Amina spent weekends and school breaks working at Abdullahi Industries. She learned about construction projects, manufacturing operations, import-export logistics, financial management, human resources. She was a sponge, absorbing everything. "You're a natural," the finance director told her. "Have you considered an MBA after your bachelor's degree?" "I haven't thought that far ahead." "You should. With your work ethic and understanding, you could run your own company one day." The idea seemed impossible. A girl from Garin Dutch running a company? But then again, a year ago, walking normally had seemed impossible. And she was doing that now. 18 months after arriving in Abuja, Amina made her first trip back to Garin Dutz. She was nervous as the SUV approached the village. What would people say? How would they treat her? But when she stepped out of the vehicle, wearing modern clothes, walking normally, confident and educated. The reaction was unlike anything she'd expected. Silence first, then whispers. Is that Amina? It can't be. She's walking normally. She looks so different. She looks rich. Hajia Halima, who'd returned to the village 3 months earlier to oversee completion of their new house, rushed forward with tears streaming down her face. My granddaughter. Look at you. Look at you. They embraced as the village watched. Hadiza appeared next, screaming with joy. Amina, you're walking. Really walking. It's like a miracle. Not a miracle. Amina laughed. Just excellent doctors and 6 months of painful therapy. The village chief approached carefully, respectfully. Amina, welcome home. We're honored by your visit. We've been following your progress. Everyone is so proud. Are they? Amina cut him off gently. Or are they just glad I succeeded so you can claim credit? The chief flushed but said nothing. Amina walked through the village, really walked, without difficulty, seeing the changes. The new school was operating with 3 teachers and 90 students. The health clinic had a nurse and saw patients 6 days a week. The water wells provided clean water to everyone, all because she grabbed a bamboo pole. She visited the riverbank where it had happened. The bamboo pole was still there, mounted on a stone monument with a brass plaque. Here, Amina Ibrahim showed courage when others showed fear. May this pole remind us that true strength comes from the heart, not the body. Children gathered around her, staring with wide eyes. Are you really the Amina? One little girl asked. The one who saved the rich man? Yes, that's me. My teacher says you're a hero, that we should be brave like you. Amina knelt down to the girl's level. You know what real bravery is? It's doing the right thing even when you're scared, even when people say you can't. Even when it's hard. Can you do that? The little girl nodded seriously. I'll try. That's all anyone can do. Just try. That evening, Al-Haji Musa arrived in the village for a surprise visit. With him came a camera crew from a national television station. I want to do an interview, he explained. Tell the full story. Show people what real courage looks like. Are you willing? The interview was broadcast nationally 2 weeks later. Amina told her story. The mockery, the rescue, the poisoning, the transformation. She held nothing back. The response was overwhelming. Letters arrived at Al-Haji Musa's office from across Nigeria, from other disabled youth saying Amina had inspired them, from parents thanking her for being a role model, from villages asking for help with their own development. One letter stood out. It was from a 13-year-old girl in Kano State who'd been born without a left hand. She'd been called useless and kept home from school. But after seeing Amina's interview, she demanded to be educated. You showed me that being different doesn't mean being less, the girl wrote. I want to be brave like you. Please tell me how. Amina wrote back immediately. Be brave by trying, even when people say you can't. Be brave by believing in yourself when others don't. Be brave by doing what's right, even when it's hard. That's all I did. That's all any of us can do. 6 months later, that same girl would write again. She'd been admitted to school and was top of her class. The chain was continuing. As Amina's 3rd year of university began, she approached Al-Haji Musa with a proposal. I want to start a foundation for disabled and disadvantaged youth from rural areas. Give them what you gave me, medical care, education, opportunity. That's ambitious. Such a foundation would require significant resources. I know, but you taught me to think big. You taught me that one person's courage can change lives. I want to multiply that. I want to be for other struggling kids what you were for me. Al-Haji Musa studied her for a long moment, then smiled. You're ready. Let's do it. I'll provide startup capital. You'll run it. Learn by doing. Make mistakes and fix them. Build something real. The Bamboo Pole Foundation was registered 6 months later. Its mission: identify courageous youth from rural areas who'd overcome adversity and give them comprehensive support, medical care, education, mentorship, and business training. Amina was its director. At 20 years old, she was running a nonprofit organization, finishing her bachelor's degree and planning for an MBA. The girl who'd been called Gergua, worthless, useless, weak, was becoming a force for change. And she was just getting started. She actually walked. 6 months of agony, but she did it. Then university, where she was top of her class. Then business training with the billionaire. And now she started her own foundation to help other disadvantaged youth. The chain of kindness continues. But one question remains. Will she ever truly return to the village that mocked her? Smash that like button. Subscribe to African Tales by Zion because the final chapter shows Amina's ultimate transformation and a lesson that will change your life. Comment, what would you do with such an opportunity? Hit that notification bell. 5 years after the rescue, Amina Ibrahim stood on a stage in Lagos addressing 2,000 people at the National Youth Leadership Summit. At 22, she completed her bachelor's degree with honors, earned an MBA, and built the Bamboo Pole Foundation into a nationally recognized organization that had helped over 300 disadvantaged youth access education and opportunity. But more than her accomplishments, what drew people to Amina was her story, and her absolute refusal to pretend it had been easy. People like to say disability is not an ability. Amina told the crowd, and that's true. But let's be honest, disability makes everything harder. I'm not going to stand here and pretend my twisted leg was some kind of gift. It hurt. It limited me. It made people cruel. What changed my life wasn't accepting my disability. It was refusing to let my disability be the only thing people saw. When I grabbed that bamboo pole, I wasn't thinking I'm going to prove everyone wrong. I was thinking someone is dying and I can help. That's the secret. Stop trying to prove you're strong enough. Just do what needs doing. Strength will follow. The applause was thunderous. After the speech, a young man approached her, maybe 17, thin and nervous, wearing clothes that had seen better days. Miss Amina, I'm Chinedu from Anambra State. I have a condition, cerebral palsy. Mild, but people treat me like I'm stupid because I walk funny and my hands shake. But I'm not stupid. I'm actually really good at computers. Nobody will give me a chance. Amina recognized herself in his desperate hope. Can you code? Yes, Ma. I taught myself from YouTube videos at the cyber cafe. Show me. Chinedu pulled out a battered laptop. Old, scratched, but clearly loved. His shaking hands navigated to a website he'd built. Simple but functional. This is good work. Amina said, really good. Are you in school? Secondary school, Ma. But my family can't afford university. Bamboo Pole Foundation Scholarship covers university tuition, accommodation, and a stipend. You'll apply this week. I'll personally review your application. Chinedu's eyes filled with tears. Just like that? You don't even know me. I know courage when I see it. Teaching yourself to code with shaking hands, using old equipment at an expensive cyber cafe. That's courage. That's exactly who the foundation is for. 6 months later, Chinedu would be enrolled at the University of Lagos studying computer science. His tuition fully covered. The chain continued. That same year, Amina made a decision that surprised everyone. She returned to Garin Dutz permanently. Not to live. She maintained her life in Abuja, but to establish the Bamboo Pole Foundation's headquarters there. Why? Al-Haji Musa asked. Why go back to the place that treated you so badly? Because running away would mean they still have power over me. By returning successful and using my success to help others, I proved they were wrong about me. That's real victory. She purchased land on the village outskirts and built a compound, foundation offices, a training center, dormitory for scholarship recipients, and a medical clinic specializing in orthopedic care for rural patients. Will bring what I received, medical treatment, education, opportunity, to the villages that need it most. No child should have to nearly drown saving a billionaire to get a chance at life. The complex employed 40 people from Garin Dutz and surrounding villages. Suddenly, the girl they called worthless was their biggest employer. The village chief visited her office the week it opened. Amina, the village council want to honor you, give you a chieftaincy title, make you Ada Garin Dutz, daughter of Garin Dutz. Amina looked at him with clear eyes. I don't want your title. I don't need your validation. 5 years ago, you would have let me starve. Now you want to honor me because it reflects well on you. The answer is no. Please, Amina, we've learned our lesson. We were wrong. You learned that there are consequences for cruelty. That's not the same as learning to be kind. When I see genuine change in this village, when I see you treating other weak people with dignity without needing a billionaire to tell you to, then we can talk about titles. The chief left empty-handed. But something interesting happened over the next year. The village did change. Children with disabilities who'd been hidden away were brought to Amina's clinic. Can you help my son? He has a clubfoot. My daughter is deaf. Can she still go to school? My nephew can't walk. Is there anything? Each time, Amina provided care, arranged treatment, secured educational support. Not because these families deserved it. Many had mocked her, but because their children deserved it. I won't punish children for their parents' cruelty, she told Malama Zainab, who now ran the foundation's daily operations. These kids need help. That's what matters. Word spread. Parents from neighboring villages brought their disabled children. The clinic expanded. The foundation grew. And gradually, something shifted in Garin Duts. Children stopped being hidden. Disabilities stopped being shameful. A boy with a limp was enrolled in school instead of kept home. It wasn't perfect. Prejudice doesn't disappear overnight. But it was progress. 3 years after returning to Garin Duts, Amina was working late in her office when Malama Zainab knocked urgently. There's a situation. A young girl. The village found her by the river. She was trying to drown herself. Amina's blood went cold. Is she alive? Yes. They brought her to the clinic. She's asking for you specifically. The girl was 16, thin and hollow-eyed, with visible burn scars on her arms and face. She sat on the clinic bed staring at nothing. My name is Amina. They said you asked for me. The girl nodded. You're the one who saved the rich man. The cripple who became important. Yes. What's your name? Hawa. I'm from the next village. My husband's family burned me. Accused me of being a witch because I couldn't get pregnant. They poured hot oil on me and threw me out. Amina felt rage building. How long ago? 3 months. I've been living in the bush, eating scraps. Today I decided it was better to die than live like this. No. Amina's voice was firm. You don't die. You survive. And then you grow. And then you win. That's how it works. Win? Look at me. I'm ruined. No one will ever. I was ruined too. Called worthless. Told I'd never matter. And look at me now. You're not dead, Hawa. That means you're not done fighting. Over the next 6 months, Hawa lived at the foundation compound. She received medical treatment for her burns, counseling for her trauma, education through the foundation's adult literacy program. And slowly, she began to heal, not just physically, but internally. I want to do what you do, Hawa told Amina one evening. Help people like us, the broken ones, the ones everyone gives up on. Then you'll need education, real education. What did you study before? Nothing. My family married me off at 14. I can barely read. Then we start there, reading, writing, math. You'll catch up. I did. 2 years later, Hawa would be admitted to a nursing program, her tuition covered by the Bamboo Pole Foundation. She'd become one of the foundation's most effective counselors, because she understood trauma in a way textbooks couldn't teach. The chain continued. 10 years after the rescue, on the anniversary of that transformative day, Amina stood by the river where it had happened. The Bamboo Pole Monument had been expanded into a proper memorial garden. Dozens of stones carried names, scholarship recipients, medical patients, youth who'd been helped by the foundation and gone on to help others. Over 800 names now. 800 lives changed. Alhaji Musa joined her, older now but still strong, still involved in the foundation that had become his legacy project. I've been thinking, he said, about that teacher who gave me my start 30 years ago, about how she never knew what became of me, never saw what her kindness created. That must be hard. not knowing. Yes, but also beautiful. She helped me without needing to see the result. That's pure generosity. He paused. You're creating the same thing. Amina, 800 people whose lives are different because of what you built, but the real number is much higher because each of them will help someone else. And that person will help another. The chain never ends. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't grabbed that pole. If I'd been like everyone else and just watched you drown. You wouldn't have, because that's not who you are. You're the person who acts when action is needed. That's not about circumstances. It's about character. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the river flow. The village wants to rename this the Amina Ibrahim River, Al-Haji Musa said. Official proposal from the state government. Absolutely not. It's the River Niger. It doesn't need my name on it. They want to honor you. They can honor me by treating their weak and disadvantaged with dignity. That's the only honor that matters. That evening, the foundation hosted its annual scholarship ceremony. 50 new scholars were being welcomed. Young people from across Nigeria who'd overcome disability, poverty, abuse, or discrimination to demonstrate exceptional courage. Amina stood before them, looking at their hopeful faces, seeing herself in each one. You're here because you're brave, she told them. Not because you're perfect. Not because you never struggle. But because when life knocked you down, you got back up. When people said you couldn't, you did anyway. I'm not going to lie to you. This won't be easy. Education is hard. Therapy is painful. Changing your life requires work. Some days you'll want to quit. Some days you'll think the people who mocked you were right. But they weren't right. They were just afraid. Afraid that someone they dismissed might achieve more than they ever will. Afraid that being weak doesn't actually mean being less. You're going to prove them wrong. Not by being perfect. Not by never struggling. But by refusing to give up. By doing what needs doing even when it's hard. By being brave when bravery is required. 10 years ago, I grabbed a bamboo pole and pulled a drowning man from a river. That moment changed my life. But you know what? My life would still have value even if that hadn't happened. Your life has value right now, before any grand achievement. You matter because you're human beings with potential and dignity. The scholarships, the medical care, the support, those are just tools. You're the ones who will build something meaningful with those tools. My job is to give you the chance. Your job is to take it and run. She looked at Hawa, sitting in the audience with her nursing textbooks, her burn scars visible but her eyes bright with purpose. Look around this room. Everyone here was told they were weak, useless, worthless, but we're building something together. A community of people who prove that strength has nothing to do with perfect bodies or privileged backgrounds. We're showing Nigeria what courage really looks like. Standing ovation, tears, hope. After the ceremony, a small girl approached Amina, maybe 7 years old, with a prosthetic leg, holding her mother's hand. Are you really Amina Ibrahim? Yes, sweetheart. My leg got hurt in an accident. The doctors had to cut it off. Everyone says I'm broken now. But my teacher says you walk funny too, and you're not broken. So maybe I'm not broken either. Amina knelt down, tears forming. You're not broken. You're just different. And different can be powerful if you let it be. Will you teach me to be powerful? Yes, I'll teach you. And one day, you'll teach someone else. That's how it works. That's how the chain never breaks. The little girl nodded seriously, then hugged Amina tight. In that moment, Amina understood this was the real victory. Not the education, or the foundation, or the successful career. Those were just tools. The real victory was in the chain. Each person helped passing on help to another, creating an unbreakable network of courage and compassion that would outlast any individual achievement. 15 years after the rescue, Amina sat in her Abuja home with Ajia Halima, now 87 and frail, but still sharp. I'm proud of you, child, her grandmother said. Your parents would be so proud. I wish they could see this. They do. And your father would say, see? I told you, when you can help, you must help. You've lived that lesson every day. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been if Alhaji Musa's car hadn't crashed. If I'd never had that moment. You'd have found another way to matter, because that's who you are. The bamboo pole was just the opportunity. Your character created everything else. A week later, Hajia Halima died peacefully in her sleep. At the funeral, hundreds attended. Foundation scholars, foundation staff, villagers from Garin Duts, dignitaries from Abuja, patients from the clinic, and one billionaire who'd once been a drowning man. She raised someone who saved my life, Alhaji Musa said in his eulogy. And through that person, hundreds of others have been saved too. That's her legacy. Not just Amina, but everyone Amina has touched. They buried Hajia Halima in Garin Duts, in the beautiful cemetery the foundation had built. Her headstone read, Hajia Halima Ibrahim, she taught her granddaughter. When you can help, you must help. 20 years after the rescue, Amina was invited to speak at the United Nations Conference on Disability and Development in New York. She stood before representatives from 193 countries and told her story, not as a triumph narrative, but as a challenge. My country called me worthless, a cripple, Gergua. I was dismissed, mocked, poisoned for daring to rise. But I grabbed a bamboo pole anyway. I pulled a drowning man from a river anyway. I built a life anyway. How many worthless people are in your countries right now? People with potential you're ignoring because they don't fit your narrow definition of valuable? How many drowning people could be saved if someone just extended a pole? Stop waiting for perfect solutions. Stop waiting for ideal conditions. Just grab your bamboo pole, whatever that means in your context, and extend it to someone who's drowning. You don't need to be strong. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to act. The speech went viral. Within weeks, the Bamboo Pole Foundation received funding requests from 12 countries wanting to replicate the model. You're going global, Alhaji Musa said proudly. A village girl who couldn't walk properly is now influencing international development policy. No, Amina corrected gently. A village girl who chose courage is showing others that they can choose it too. That's not about me. That's about the decision every person can make when they see someone drowning. 25 years after the rescue, Amina returned to Garin Duts for the village's anniversary celebration. The village had transformed. The school now had 12 classrooms and 400 students. The clinic had expanded into a small hospital. Clean water was everywhere. Businesses had developed. Young people were educated and employed. But the real change was cultural. Children with disabilities attended school alongside everyone else. A girl with cerebral palsy was head girl, the village's top student. A boy who'd lost his arm in an accident was training to be a mechanic at a workshop specifically designed for disabled youth. The village chief, old now, humbled by time, approached Amina. We want to apologize, officially, publicly, for how we treated you, for the poisoning, for calling you worthless. We were wrong, and we want to make it right. Amina looked at this man who'd once stood by while she was mocked. You can't make it right. The past is the past. But you can do better going forward. Are you? We're trying. We've learned. Every child in this village now knows your story. They learn that physical weakness isn't the same as being less. They learn that courage matters more than strength. You've changed us, Amina. No, I gave you an opportunity to change. You chose to take it. That's the difference. She walked through the village, past a memorial garden that had grown to include 2,000 names now, past the Foundation's regional headquarters that employed 300 people, past a hospital treating patients from 6 states, and she walked past children playing by the river, including children with disabilities, included now instead of hidden, valued instead of dismissed. One little girl ran up to her, maybe 6 years old, with a hearing aid. Are you the bamboo pole lady? Amina smiled. Yes, I am. My teacher says you saved a man even though your leg was broken. Is that true? Sort of. My leg wasn't broken. It just didn't work right. But yes, I helped save someone. Why? Weren't you scared? Very scared. But I helped anyway. Sometimes being brave means being scared and acting anyway. I want to be brave like you. Then be brave. Help people when you can. Stand up when others sit down. Do what's right even when it's hard. That's all I did. That's all any of us can do. The little girl nodded solemnly, then ran back to play. Amina watched her go, this child who would grow up in a village that had learned, slowly, painfully, that worth isn't determined by physical ability. That courage can come from anyone. That the weakest person can become the strongest. That one moment of bravery can change not just a life, but a community, but culture, but a country. 30 years after the rescue, Amina Ibrahim, now 52, retired from active management of the Bamboo Pole Foundation to focus on writing and speaking. She'd authored 3 books. The Bamboo Pole, How One Brave Moment Changed Everything. Building Chains. From Weakness to Strength, Extending the Pole, A Guide to Helping Others Rise. All 3 were bestsellers. All 3 were required reading in Nigerian secondary schools. The foundation had helped over 5,000 individuals directly and influenced hundreds of thousands more indirectly. It operated in 17 countries. It had spawned 50 similar organizations around the world. But Amina was most proud of something simpler. In Garandut's village, the children played a game called Bamboo Pole, where they took turns pretending to rescue each other, competing to show the most courage and quick thinking. The girl they called Gergua, the cripple, the worthless one, had become their heroic ideal, that, more than any award or recognition, proved that the chain had worked. Alhaji Musa, now 82, visited Amina in her Abuja home one evening. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "That day at the river. Your life would have been simpler if you'd just watched me drown like everyone else." Amina laughed. "Simpler? Yes. Better? No. That moment at the river gave me everything. Not the reward you gave me, but the knowledge that I could be brave when it mattered. That's worth more than simplicity. I've been thinking about what to tell the woman who helped me 30 years ago. If I ever find her, what would you say? Thank you, not just for the money or the help, but for believing in a random street boy when no one else did. For starting this chain that's now affected thousands of people. For proving that one act of kindness can ripple forever. That's what I'd tell you," Amina said. "Thank you for believing in a random village girl when her own village didn't. For starting my chain. For teaching me that helping others isn't just charity. It's how we become fully human." They sat in comfortable silence. 2 people connected by a moment of crisis 30 years earlier, who'd each chosen courage over fear and built something beautiful from that choice. "The chain continues," Alhaji Musa said. "The chain always continues." Amina agreed. "That's the point. We don't help people, so they'll thank us. We help them so they'll help others. That's how change happens. One bamboo pole at a time. From worthless to influential. From crippled to powerful. From village mockery to United Nations speaker. All because of one brave moment with a bamboo pole. But this story isn't just about Amina. It's about you. Right now, someone around you is drowning. Maybe not literally in a river, but drowning in poverty, disability, discrimination, hopelessness. And right now, you have a bamboo pole, whether it's your time, your resources, your skills, your voice. The question is, will you extend it? Will you be like the strong men who stood and watched? Or will you be like Amina, scared but brave, limited but willing, ordinary but extraordinary in the moment that mattered? This is what African Tales by Zion is all about, showing you that heroes aren't born. They're not gifted with special powers. They're just ordinary people who choose courage when courage is needed. If this story moved you, inspired you, made you think, maybe I can be brave too, then smash that like button, hit subscribe, because we have hundreds more stories of ordinary Africans doing extraordinary things. Share this with someone who feels weak or worthless or overlooked. Let them know your moment is coming. Your bamboo pole is waiting. And when you grab it, when you extend it to someone drowning, you'll discover what Amina discovered. That true strength was inside you all along. Drop a comment. What's your bamboo pole? Who's your drowning person? What brave thing will you do this week? Hit that notification bell so you never miss another inspiring story. Remember, the village called her the weakest, But she became the strongest, not by changing who she was, by refusing to let their judgment define her worth. You're not weak. You're not worthless. You're not less than anyone. You're just waiting for your bamboo pole moment. And when it comes, grab it. Thank you for watching African Tales by Zion. Until next time, be brave, be kind, be the one who extends a pole.